All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another week of Truth Hour. And we have two special guests joining us. We have Lauren May Calora, political science major out in Massachusetts, and endlessly talented, can sing. And I'm not just saying that because she's amazing, but I had the videotapes to prove it. Don't worry, I won't put them on YouTube. But I've seen it. I've seen it live. Can sing, can write, can do it all. And the incomparable Aarushi Phalke, future, I think, congresswoman and activist, challenging the status quo on her campus as a junior, and then I imagine again as a senior, but I wasn't there to see it. But these two will fight for what they believe in. So clearly, they have a welcome seat at the Truth Hour table. So I wish we had like music to get us going, but that's all right. We're just gonna jump right into it. Unless you guys wanted to say something like introductory, because that was a very cursory intro.
No, thank you for the introduction.
Yeah.
So I mean, my first question is related to the election. This was not on my list of ones to ask, but I'm just curious, what's it? So I know you all both participated in the primary a few months ago, but what does this election mean to you as a first-time general election voter?
Wait, Aarushi, were you able to participate in the primary?
No, I just turned 18 in August. So
Oh.
I'm young.
Another August B-Day. I'm an August baby.
Great. It's not my birthday.
Well, what's it gonna? Well, then so this is even more important than for you. You didn't even get to participate.
But it's something that it's a kind of.
Yeah, I think it is a really important one, and I voted in Florida, and so there were a lot of important things on the ballot besides the general election.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, for me, I think I've been processing how I view politics in the light of these debates that are really appealing to undecided voters who are deciding between Trump and Biden, which definitely puts me off because I'm trying to, imagine how are people going to survive right now, and that's what I'm really concerned about. And so I think I'm going to participate. I already voted to get Trump out, but I also think focusing on what amendments are being passed right now in our ballots, what are the things that are up that are a lot smaller and much more local, and then also thinking beyond politics in general.
For me, this was my third time voting, and I think the thing that I realize every time that I voted is there's a huge emphasis on voting and the importance of using your right to vote, but oftentimes there's not the resources to do all the background research for everyone you're voting for or all the policies you're voting for. And it's so easy to say vote, but then when you actually look at the ballot, you have to take so much more time and effort to actually be a responsible voter. You can't just vote.
I appreciate you saying that. A responsible voter. I think that, first, thank you both for being here. I'm really excited to have a conversation with both of you tonight. It's great to hear from both sides. Aarushi mentioned, knowing about the ballot measures that are placed on your ballot, during this election cycle. I think the average voter, probably more than just the average voter, a lot of people think they're just going there for this election this year, or actually any time that they vote. In most elections, people think that they're voting for the president. And so, as Lauren May mentioned, it is our responsibility, or, it's you do have the right to vote, but we also have the right to act with wisdom. And I think a lot of times, one of the things you brought up and something that I learned or continuously learned, because I don't think this is the first time I realized this, but more so the lack of information that is put out there, because there's a few people, and I just want to encourage anybody that's listening, make sure that you reach out to your friends, your family members, your colleagues, and just simply ask them, hey, have you voted? Because I'm not going to name them because they're probably watching, but I text some family members and friends recently, and I thought that, oh, okay, of course they voted. And they were asking, well, how do I do that? Like, they know that they're registered, but they didn't know they didn't know where to find the information for early voting, polling location. And then one of the things too, last week, Cliff and we had talked about key ballot measures, but it takes some digging. It takes some digging, and the average person is not wanting to spend like over 10 minutes, researching this information. So I do think that we need to make this a better process. That's one thing that I know that I'm willing to take on outside of this, because it is important if we want to continuously have people participate in this process. You want them to feel as if like they're part of it and not just feeling obligated to show up. So yeah, I hear all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it took me 5 days to finish filling out my ballot just because of all the propositions. I mean, I don't know how many, Florida, the only one I care about is Amendment 2 on Florida's ballot. But beyond that, it's like we got, I care about every single one of the proposition measures on the California ballot, dearly. So this is a pretty consequential election, beyond just president, vice president. But Lauren May kind of hit the nail on the head. Being an informed voter means that you're taking the time to consider every single thing on that ballot, because it's all going to impact you. And it's interesting, they sent out a progressive voter guide, and I think I deviated from it by 3 or 4 different positions and propositions. It's like, this isn't, to me, I was like, this isn't very progressive, because I saw the ones that they had recommended, and then I looked at my ballot well, I guess I'm not progressive because this is trash. So yeah, you have to vote your heart at the end of the day. You can't vote what other people think or what other people what they say. I think you could take in information, but you got to vote your heart at the end of the day.
Yeah. And and with that, like you said, you said that you received it in the mail.
Yeah. And
I know a lot of people, they rely on the poll workers or groups, not poll workers. Sorry, I'm not talking about poll workers, but they rely on individuals that are there from different organizations that are going to pass out the papers to inform them of, okay, this is who we're supporting. And that's not enough, because I was handed one of those at the polling location just going off this year, and all it stated was, okay, these are the candidates that we're supporting. And so it's just like, great, you're supporting them, but why? Because if you have 8 people listed, for city council, but you can only pick maybe 4, that's not helpful for the person that possibly didn't go and do as much research. If you're standing in line, you have some time, but again, it's also really wanting to be informed and not being rushed to make the decision.
All right, if you're just now joining us, we are currently discussing the 2020 election, and we're deciding not just between these 2 individuals. And as we just mentioned, there's a range of other issues that are important, but that's the focus right now, election 2020. And on that note, I have a question for our 2 guests, Lauren May and Aarushi Phalke. If you are and we kind of talked about this a little bit last night, so you can repeat answers, that's okay, because they didn't hear it. If you're a progressive or a very left-leaning voter, and your friends in the party are telling you to suck it up and vote for Biden, Biden has done a lot, I would say, to distance himself from the progressive base of his party, from making statements along the lines of, I beat those people with my party now. I don't support the Green New Deal. I don't support defunding the police. I don't support Medicare for all. So it's for those people where environmental justice and racial justice and these are kind of core issues for them. We're not talking about fringe issues. We're talking about issues that are in people's core of what they espouse. What's in it for them to support and vote for Biden?
Well, I would argue there's not a lot, right? I think I'm going to appeal to like people who are choosing in a moment and also give my reasoning for why I personally voted for Biden. But yeah, I think this idea of like, we can push Biden to the left. This is something that I've been hearing from a lot of people trying to like pressure others into voting for Biden, people who don't want to keep playing into a system that's not helping them, right? And I understand that. I understand, like, we are facing the same conversation around climate change for years, and we are like today in class, my professor was like, yeah, there's fires. I already have my car packed in case I have to go. So if class is canceled, And I was like, this is a reality. People are like losing their homes. People are being displaced. It's really terrible. And as we get closer and closer to the election, Biden is trying to get those undecided voters between Trump and Biden. And he is going more and more and more away from the left. And he's attacking the left. And he shut down the Green New Deal in the debate and was talking about not ending fracking, even though this is the state of the world that we're in. And it's really depressing. And yeah, not refusing to defund the police and all of these things that seem so essential as just first steps, really. We need first steps towards addressing climate change. We need to start defunding the police. We haven't really approached that yet. We're not even talking about beyond that, And so I understand for people who are like, this government isn't serving me, right? And this is this candidate who, isn't going to serve my needs. And we can't push him to the left because he's trying to appeal to everyone. He's not appealing to just the Democratic Party anymore. But at the same time, I'm just from the attitude like of harm reduction, really, right? It's just like we're between these two people. Neither of them support defunding the police, right? And so we're in this like really crappy situation in my mind. And because voting, I'm not a suppressed voter. It's easy for me to vote. I voted by mail. I feel an obligation to reduce the harm that's going to happen from our government, really.
Yeah. And to that point, I mean, see, I'm gonna let you go in a second, Lauren May, but I see the face you made, Shonda, but you sparked something, because it's like you're saying he's not just trying to appeal to his base anymore because we're out of the primary season. And this is one element of politics that I hate. Like, because we think about traditional politics, you run to the edges of your party to win essentially the nomination, and then you kind of sprint back to the middle. But the problem is the Democratic Party for the past two generations, right, starting from Clinton, like it was really like the early 90s going forward, the party has now started kind of in the middle and then tries to go just a little bit to the left. Whereas you have folks like in the squad, right, like Presley, Ocasio-Cortez, Omar, right? You have those folks who are saying, these are where young voters are. This is where the party needs to be. And then you have that old guard that says, no, the party needs to be in the middle if we're going to sustain ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if having that division long term is sustainable for the party. I think the party needs to decide, because that whole big tent nonsense, it's clearly not working.
Okay, let's let Lauren May.
For me, I think it just comes down to tactical voting, which adds on to what Arushi's saying. There are institutions in place in the United States that make voters feel like they have to vote a certain way based on the ways things are set up. And I think part of the thing that's gone into tactical voting this general election is guilting voters, like feeling like it feels like a lot of people are pressuring to choose Biden and no one else, when in reality it's completely fair to be struggling with your vote and who you're choosing to vote for if Biden truly does not align with your beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what I've seen early on, after like when it really looked as if, okay, he will have the nomination, the whole anyone but people, everyone's been saying it, anyone but Trump, and then like vote him out. And so then it became centered around, we just have to focus on getting Trump out. And what was harmful with that messaging is what everyone's describing here, is that you then alienate you alienate the party from moving forward with progressive policies, and then and holding them to the fire and saying that we're no longer willing to be held back like by this institution, like for it to actually be the old guard or the establishment. Because early on, I do think that there was a lot of opportunity I'm not gonna say a lot, but I think there were more opportunities for them to have these conversations with groups like Black Lives Matter, or even meeting with the squad. And I hate that they've done that. That's like that's going a little bit further in the conversation, but I also feel as if, I know we talked about this last night, but like when you begin to label people within your own party a name, and because then at that point you're already putting it out there that there's a difference, and that you make it seem as if we can't come together. And one thing that I would like to see, and I want to know like how you both feel about this, is when they do begin to use those terms, do you feel as if there's things that they should be doing? I mean, we know like with most progressives, they're already appealing and reaching out to, they reach younger people. But what would you then say can be done to bring in like people that are over the age of 40 and older, so that then there isn't this rift between, because I think it's also a generational thing. So what would you both have to say about that?
I mean, I have this is a little sidetracked from your question, but it's this labeling of the squad, and it's almost like I am observing the celebrity culture around politicians now. The way people talk about AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley, and like Ilhan Omar, like all of, and now we have Jamal Bowman and like Cori Bush, and it's expanding and it's great, but like
I love Cori Bush, by the way.
Yeah. No, I follow them on Twitter, and I'm engaging with them because I think these are the politicians that I want to hold accountable. These aren't the politicians that I want to idolize. The politicians where I'm like, we have real, like from the left, right? Some, like, I would argue I'm more left than some of the politicians on the squad, right? And it's like, these are the group of politicians where I want to have some sort of public accountability to, because they care about their constituents, and I see that there's some hope there in actually creating this change. But what I feel a little stuck on is that I think, and this is not to pin the blame of celebrity culture on young people, I think celebrity culture exists regardless of age, but there is this idolization, or like whenever people are like, oh, I feel so hopeless about whoever is going to be president, and they're just like, AOC for president, she did that Among Us thing. And I'm like, I think she's cool. She was funny and she was nice. And it's like, but I want to always look at whatever policies she's putting forward and still be like, what is it? Do I support it? And if there are things that I want to be amended, how can I participate with like her being so present on social media and being present online? And so, yeah, that's what excites me about the squad. Not so much about like, oh, they're just so awesome and being idolized and like someone that, yeah. And so, yeah, that's how I feel about that.
And what about you? I mean, well, but I guess like to the question, because again, you both are in college, so you're of that demographic. Like when we talk about young voters, like you're part of that. And so I just wonder, like, what does that look like to you when, because I don't know if you have some of those members in your family, but where it is a generational, there's going to be like that generational gap in terms of talking about people being like liberal or being so far to the left. So what would you say like that can be done in order to bring them, to the conversation? Because I'm not saying you can win everyone over, but I do think part of it is the conversation.
Yeah, I think for me, like my parents and I have different opinions, and I realize the main difference between us is they're more willing to just accept the status quo or what's been going on, and I've been able to like question, why do we allow these people to continue to be in positions of power in government for such a long time, and why can't we change that? Like in an earlier Truth Hour, you talked about term limits. I think that needs to be changed. Um, and just raising these questions of like, why do you believe this? And like trying to have this conversation with my family has been a starting point. And I don't know how to like apply that to outside of people I know, but just I think raising more questions has brought up like the possibility of them considering more options.
I also would say that I think politics should be accessible to everyone. Everyone is we are in a position where we say, it's not actually enacted because of the high voter suppression and everything. We say that everyone should be involved in our government because we claim we are like democratic and such. But if politics is not accessible to everyone, then we have these sort of issues. And so someone could look at like the younger progressives who are now in Congress or in our like local government and be like, they're inexperienced, they don't know what they're talking about, right? But I think that's if that's a belief that people are holding, then that means that we fundamentally don't believe that politics is accessible to everyone, right? What's the difference between a young voter and an older voter, right? Because we should be similarly educated about this if we are going to be participating in our democracy. And so I see it as like, I have no problem with someone as young as AOC being a congressperson, because the idea is that politics should be accessible to every voter. You don't need to have a ridiculous amount of time in some government or like, yeah, in some like public service to then be in this position.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think ideologically I'm as far left, but I think I'm much more radical on the changes I want made to the the Constitution, because I would propose that I think she should be old enough to run for president. And I hate that you have to be 30. I mean, it's nonsense how old you have to be to run for president. But I'm not going to go down that road. I wanted to transition so that we can talk about what took place last night and what's been taking place, and the efforts of the Senate Republicans to kind of rush through a process to confirm to the highest court in our country, the U.S. Supreme Court, Donald Trump's nominee, and Amy Barrett, an appellate judge who was an appellate judge for less than 3 years, and before she was nominated to the appellate court, she was a professor, and before she was a professor, she was an attorney who never tried a case. She was an attorney for 2 years, never tried a case. She was named professor after having had no position in teaching or teaching assistant, and then named to the court because she had written a whole lot of right-wing articles. And they'll find you out there they will find you. You print an article that appeals to the Federalist Society, they will find you and they will recommend your appointment to the court. So I guess it's a very basic question. What good will come from Amy Barrett's nomination? Amy Barrett's confirmation to the court?
That's a very skewed question, Cliff.
I mean, the answer may be no good. I
have an answer. I think here we are in a position where we are seeing the structures of our systems. Like, I think it's more obvious now than before when RBG held the court that these systems hold too much power over individuals. They're not democratic enough. They're not in line with what the population believes. Like this is just exposing vulnerabilities, right? And I'm all for like restructuring the court. I think this needs to change. Like these systems are failing people, right? And so I would argue any good that could possibly come from this, I'm not going to say it will, because Joe Biden has been really weird about answering what he will plan to do if elected with the Supreme Court, but I think the more and more we see, Donald Trump abuse his power, the more and more we see, this rushed confirmation, the more we're seeing that like these systems are setting up Americans to fail, right? And it's becoming a stronger and stronger argument to radically change them.
Yeah, my fear with that, Aarushi, though, is instead of actually changing systems, the focus becomes finding loopholes within our current system and then just having a game with our two-party system going back and forth, depending on whoever has more control and pushing it to whoever's favor and ignoring the systemic issues with our government.
So I actually have, I'll say a democratic unpopular, but a pretty unpopular democratic, a capital D democratic unpopular opinion as it relates to now Justice Barrett. Oh, it doesn't even feel right. Justice Barrett's appointment to the court. Not only do I have no problem with her faith, I think it's a good thing. And this is coming from a person who does not follow any particular religion, right? Like, I have no problem with the fact that she's a Christian. I don't care what your faith is. I just wish that if people were actually, because people say, oh, I'm going to put my faith aside and just look at the black and white letter of the law. That's nonsense, right? Like, we are humans. There are certain biases that we are, conditioned to follow. The problem is people deviate from what the text and the doctrine tells them. So if you're going to create dogma from the actual text of your faith, that's when it's problematic to me. Because if you're going to profess yourself to be a Christian, I think that you should want to help others, right? I think you lend a helping hand. I think you espouse views that are actually more aligned to the majority of people than creating obstacles and restrictions to allow people to live freely. So for the same reason that people dislike like jihadists and say that they're bastardizing what the Quran teaches them, I have the same feeling as it relates to like certain kind of right wingers trying to thumping their Bible at people's noses to restrict access to certain like medical procedures because allegedly their Bible tells them that they have to do these things, or wanting to restrict same-sex marriage, or like, to me, it's like, these are not actually the teachings of your faith. I have no problem with her faith. I just wish that if folks were going to have their faith and it was going to determine the decisions that they make, that they actually follow their faith and follow the teachings of what their faith tells them. Again, I said it's unpopular, and you guys may say, no, you got to set all that aside, but that's kind of my view. I was just wondering just what you think it is for her to be on the court. You guys can take this in any direction, any route you want. But this is the last question I have. I know I went on long a little bit. This is the last question I have. Would you have preferred a more moderate man be appointed to the court as opposed to what seems to be a pretty extreme woman be on the court? Or do you think that representation is important and that should have been preserved for a woman?
Representation without actual feminism is garbage to me. I don't like the actual true like ending of gender-based oppression. It's not what Justice Barrett stands for. And so I don't care about just like, I think representation actually is harmful in the long term because people then are like, look, there are women here, there are women there. What are you talking about gender-based oppression? I'm like, no, they are actually harming the most vulnerable people who are facing sexism and gender-based oppression. And so.
And either of you can respond to this comment we got from a viewer.
I agree with Grace.
So Grace says there's a difference between having faith and using faith selectively to support things.
Right. I agree with that. And then also to add to, because I am a Christian, I think it's a difference when you're saying that you're led by, you're led by your faith, or or that you're led and you're guided by your faith, you know, in the things that you do, because it also is a reflection of your character and then the actions that you take. And she brings up a good point. You know, it's one, you can't pick and choose. You can't pick and choose like in which way you're going to use it. And then also too, everyone interprets things differently. Also, like with what the word says. And I'm just gonna leave it at that, because that'll just go a little bit further in the discussion.
All right. Any lasting parting ideas?
For me, the Supreme Court system, like I was reading a 538 article the other day, and it was talking about how it was shifting the political spectrum of the Supreme Court, and it's becoming more leaning more right, and it doesn't actually represent like America's political spectrum. And regardless of whoever Trump ended up choosing, like the fact that it doesn't actually represent America doesn't make sense to me.
I posed that question to my seniors in Gov a week ago, asking them, actually, no, I can't still credit. A student asked, actually the student body president asked whether having these unelected judges serve for life is democratic. And I think that 538 article that you're referencing indicates that it's not. We got one more comment on here. I don't want to rush out of here before Aarushi gets a chance to respond.
Yeah, and to what Grace is saying, I agree. And yeah, also what Aarushi, you had mentioned something, and it made me think about their decision to pick Clarence Thomas, and back in the 90s. I don't
know if you two get the reference. Let me read Grace's comment for the pod later, because people listening will be like, wait, what are they talking about? So okay. Grace's comment is also to what Aarushi said. It's the same reason why Biden saying he was going to pick a woman no matter what was so annoying. Pick a woman because she's a good option, not because you made her your only choice. Grace is in my head, because that's the last question that I have down on here. Would you have preferred Biden pick a more left-leaning man as a running mate that espouses your views as opposed to a woman?
This is the thing. It's also, I think it's a big question right now of accountability. What is democracy when you're choosing someone but you can't hold them accountable? Right? So
that's so good.
This goes beyond just electing judges. Like, if we're going to elect judges, how are we going to hold them accountable? This is something that I think creates so much abuse of power, right? Because there is no system of accountability given to the people once they choose who they get. And we all sit back being like, oh, well, it's your fault because you elected them. I didn't know they were going to do that, though. I never said they were going to do that. And I don't know, because my voter pamphlet didn't include them in my thing, right? And so it's like, this is where we're at. And it's so stupid to me that we only view democracy in the sense of like, we are choosing the people that will then have so much power over us.
Right.
Like, if they do something that causes so much harm to my community, what am I going to do? What power do I have besides just, doing some angry tweeting or whatever?
But I think it's when the systems fail. Sorry. I think it's when the systems then fail you to uphold accountability, because we've seen that the last 3.5 years with the current administration. And I mean, the people that they have in power, like different department heads and the things that they're doing. So, but I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying, is that there definitely needs to be accountability for these people that we put in power.
All right. Well, thank you two for joining. This has been.
Wait, did Lauren May get to have any last words?
Lauren May started.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Sorry. Okay.
Y'all see how so, thank you two for joining the broadcast. Love to have you back. So election night's going to be, I won't say hectic, but it's going to be definitely busy for us. We're going to be kind of periodically jumping in the live to just kind of discuss the results of different states. So if you had enough caffeine that night, so it's a week from today, if you had enough caffeine and you interested in going over it, hit us up, and we'd love to have you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so folks, if you give us just a moment, we are going to connect our IG followers and get started. All right, I'm turning off the volume. I'm turning off the volume now. For those
welcome. Thank you. Just about a few minutes late, not that bad. So for those watching on
Aarushi, Phalke,
YouTube,
discussing a bunch of things. We talked about the election. So we're going live here with Shonda, connecting. Talk about the election, the Supreme Court nomination of, well, now confirmation of Amy Barrett, and feminism. It was brilliant. So I recommend everybody head to YouTube. I recommend everybody head to YouTube afterwards so you can see the first 30 minutes and kind of get a recap of that part of the conversation.
Okay.
I see it's connecting. All right. Thank you for your patience for those watching on YouTube and Facebook. We're getting there. But while you're waiting, so we just discussed the 2020 election.
Since I requested,
Discussed the 2020 election and the Supreme Court confirmation vote last night of Amy Barrett. I believe she had 52 votes. And now we're going to transition into discussing former President Barack Obama's rally speeches in Florida.
Oh, there it is.
it ain't going the right way.
Okay.
There we go.
Sorry
I can
about
hear
that.
Okay. So President Obama's rally speeches. And then if we have time, it's funny that this is the last segment, but we'll talk about the debate from last week. All right. So let's get this banner up.
I see my ring light in my eye. So just being real transparent with everybody here. Hold on. Okay. Whew.
All right. So former President Obama has been really hitting the battleground state of Florida pretty hard the past week and a half. He sent, the Biden campaign sent him in typical Obama fashion. Whew. I mean, he gave another 45-minute speech. It was similar in merit and content. 45 minutes, and he has the same energy from the first second to the last, and it's pretty incredible and impressive to watch. But he hit on some of the central themes that I think people who somehow might still be on the fence will be persuasive. But these speeches at this point are not, and you may disagree, and I'd love to hear it. I don't think at this point campaign and rally speeches are about reaching the middle, independent, or undecided folks. I think these speeches are about galvanizing the people who are decided but may not vote. Some people might need that extra motivation. I think that's who he's trying to appeal to.
Yeah. Well, if they need extra motivation, that means that they're not sold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just a continuate, like as if they're trying to keep the base excited. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's what that's for, because again, you know, similar to what we've discussed with the debates that they've been having. I don't feel like the debates are for me. I decided long ago. So I watch the debates now just to be informed, you know, just to continuously be in the conversation, be informed. Maybe you'll hear something different, like where we've wanted them to come out and say, you know, I know before it was a missed opportunity for the Biden campaign when they were being asked questions about the Supreme Court and how he would actually in fact move if he would pack the court. So I continued to watch in one part because I wanted to hear, will he answer? Will he answer? Because now you have you have America as your audience, and you can address it in that moment. But in terms of using President Obama, I do think there's a reason that they're using him. You know, so he's well liked by many people, and he brings a different energy. In fact, an energy that some would say outshines Biden.
A competent energy? Sorry, continue.
Okay. I'm just saying he brings a different energy.
I just don't think Biden is very adept at addressing audiences, regardless of size.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's like everyone has a different delivery, because even Kamala's energy is different as well. You know,
her energy is different, but her competence is on another level.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, but it's delivery at the end of the day. I mean, it's delivery. So I'm just saying, like, her delivery is completely different than maybe Joe Biden's. I mean, not then, maybe. It is different. And so I guess, like, to answer the question, like, with using Obama, they have him in play right now to really make sure that he can get back some of the people they lost in the 2016 election, and quite possibly maybe 2018 election, winning back some of those voters, because those are the voters to me that I think you can only appeal to right now. Mm-hmm. People that are undecided, they're not I don't think they're undecided, but that's another story. So I would say that's what he's being used for, and definitely in key battleground states. So, you know, hopefully he'll go outside of Florida. Hopefully he'll, you know, move to Texas. He'll then maybe go to Arizona. I'm hoping that they'll use him in that way again, because there is a lot of opportunity, and it's not just for the president. This is also for this is also for congressional races, you know, because there is opportunity to take control over the Senate. And I think it's very important that you have as many people as possible that can appeal to voters. You need them on the ground, because look, I'm tired of listening to the ads myself. Just being honest, I'm tired of the ads. So yeah, if I had an opportunity to hear from President Obama, or even if Joe Biden, if he came to the city I live in, I would go sit outside in my car and listen to him. Why not?
You would see, no, I'm good. I always wondered, like, what's in the psyche of a rally goer? Like, no.
The same reason why you go to football games. Like, I mean, you go to, or the same thing why you go to parades.
For entertainment?
It's a rally. Like, you're
no. So to Arushi's point earlier in the first half of the conversation, to Arushi's point earlier, like, to me that comes with the idolization. Like, I'm not entertained by politicians. I want to be governed by politicians. I don't need you to make me laugh or cry. I need you to get stuff done so that I don't have to fear at night what's going to happen the next day.
Okay, Cliff. So let me ask you. So if President Obama, they said, would be speaking at a park in your neighborhood,
no,
you wouldn't go.
Now, see,
no,
let me be clear.
I'm just saying, like, you wouldn't go. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying. I mean, a park near your house. I know. Okay, all right. Yeah,
no. So but to be clear, I love me some Obama. If Obama was going to be at a book signing at a local bookshop, I'm there, because to me that's a different setting.
That's a different setting.
A campaign rally, I mean, I'm good. It could be
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela. They said was going to come back from the grave and give a campaign speech for Biden. I'm good. Like, nah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
But
if it's Mandela, but like, no.
somebody in the comments, they just said here, but some people do need it. And that's my thing. I do think that, I mean, we're all different. That's why I'm saying, like, for me, I don't like, they're putting on the debate. It's a lot of money that goes into that. You're taking up a time slot on national television. So I'm just saying, I might as well support it. I mean, somebody had to put that together. So why not, like, take an opportunity to listen to them? And everyone needs different things in order to be mobilized to go out and vote.
Yeah.
That is the one thing I do realize.
I think this is a good point. So we got a comment from Grace. I think rallies are also a place to connect with other voters. And this is true because because typically, like, to your question, you're like, if they announce that this politician was going to be president at this place, more than likely it's going to be supporters of that individual who would attend that event. So you're going to be around like-minded folk. I get it. And it's like, okay. But at the end of the day, to me, I still stick to my guns. And I say, it's more important to me that I'm governed effectively as opposed to entertained.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, but it's not, but you have to think about, this is how I look at it though, too.
Yeah.
It's not just a form of entertainment. That's like that might be an individual's first encounter to have other informative conversations. I hear a lot of people talk about how, the impact that it's had on them because their parents or it's a family member or a friend invited them to a rally. Like, that's where they actually learn about how they can actually do more than just showing up in this one moment. So it is an opportunity for you to go a step further by going to the rally, other than just what you're I think focusing more so on the you're saying like being entertained, but I do think there's more that goes on at the rally.
So to your point, and to Grace's point earlier, and I guess this is an important factor, because I don't need that external motivation to be activated. I don't need the external motivation to get involved. For me, I don't see a benefit in attending that type of an event. However, I recognize that desire for camaraderie, the desire to the need to feel validated. And for those folk, if attending these rallies means that you're going to cast a ballot for Biden, well, then great. Go to them. And if it means you're going to pull along a neighbor or family member, go to them. But yeah, I guess I don't see it. Comments are starting to.
That we already covered some of that, Cliff. Oh, and somebody did call you out. They said, I will not be going to your rallies now, Cliff.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Let's we can move on to the.
Oh wait, there is a new comment.
Okay.
It is a form of engagement for people. My mom brought me and my brother to campaign events for Obama and Governor Kitzhaber when I was younger, and it definitely had an effect on my political awareness. Yes, you here, Levi, are the person I'm referring to. Exactly. I hear lots of stories like that, and I often feel as if more people they were placed in environments like that at an earlier age, maybe they would in fact feel that there is space for them in this political process, and it's not just a one-time thing. That's how I feel about it in terms of rallies.
I'll say this. I stand corrected.
No. Well,
you know I stand corrected? What? See, this is why you don't get these types of omissions from me.
I just want this to be in the playback. I appreciate
All right.
that.
So lastly, before we sign off, we got a little bit of time. The final presidential debate was last Thursday, and it was very, very different from their first encounter. I think it must have taken what's his daughter's name, Ivanka, because I feel like she's the only human being that he will listen to and follow. I shouldn't just say listen, because he listens to people, but will actually follow her direction, not just advice or recommendations. But I think Ivanka had to sit him down and said, Dad, be quiet, be respectful, learn how to act like a human being for just 90 minutes. And then you can go back to being the white supremacist and hateful in chief, right? But for this 90 minutes, I need you to channel your innermost human being. And if you don't know what it means to do that, go watch the Lifetime channel for 5 hours and learn how to be human, and then go stand on stage with that man so that we can try to get some of these middle of the road voters who think that you are just as much of a jerk as you are, but we got to hide that from them for these 90 minutes.
You're giving her a lot of credit.
I think she's the only person that can talk to him like that. And I think because how would you explain it? I mean, we're talking about a guy who was he actually looked like a respectable human being. Everything out of his mouth was a lie, but he said it with so much calm that it was such, I mean, it was so far strayed from what he traditionally is for us that it just made you wonder, what tranquilizer dart did they shoot him with?
I'm done with you. You get to, he almost transformed, like he almost went there with the same approach that Pence had, where he's very like, it's like that subtle, it's those like subtleties that he has, but you know that he's really, this isn't a good, he's not a good person, it's just like hiding under the tone. But there were still moments that he had after a while where he was done. He wasn't going to hold back and not interrupt. He still did that. I mean, one part of it that I never will understand. How is it that you feel that you could take over and start asking questions?
Oh, when this dude turned to Kristen Welker,
yes,
and said, go, why don't you ask him that? And I'm like, what? My guy, you just continue to be a bad debater. You let Kristen Welker worry about the questions. Like,
right.
What was he doing? He did it 3 times. Stop asking her to ask this man questions. You turn and ask the man a question.
Right. Yeah. That I also didn't understand. How are we saying that we're going to mute mics and the mics were not muted while, when they weren't speaking? I just didn't understand that. I personally would have rather there had been like a delay in turning the mic on. I wouldn't have complained, but don't say you're going to mute the mics and then they're not muted.
No. What they said was, and I think she tried to provide some clarity at the start of the debate, at the initial, the time after a question is posed to both candidates. So it's not like rebuttal phase. After questions were posed to both candidates, the candidates had 2 minutes apiece to offer their answer. And then after that period, I guess it's more free-for-all-ish. So they did have 2 minutes unobstructed to give their answers. And Biden never seemed to reach that 2-minute mark. He was always done at like a minute 40, minute 45, minute 50. It's like, that's like the opposite of every politician that's ever lived. And again, I think it's because he's not the most adept at stringing together like sensible solutions and answers. I mean, and this isn't like, I'm not being ageist, but this is, I think, again, why the Democratic Party needs to do a better job of building up younger elected officials so that we never have a primary season where the top 3 options are all in their 70s. Elizabeth Warren, 70s. Bernie Sanders, 70s. Joe Biden, 70s. How?
Well, because in part, it's going to take them willing. That's going to make them willing to have these conversations and invite them into, like, in being able to invite another part of the base into the conversations. You can't continue. We talked about this the first part of the hour of our conversation. For those that maybe weren't tuned in, but you can't continue to isolate them as if they're not as if they're not in the Democratic Party. Just because their views might be a little bit more far left than yours, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not in the same, like we're not all in the same party. And so because they do that, that's the reason why we in fact end up with these establishment type candidates. Yes. And the reason why you have Kamala Harris, someone who's not as, it's interesting because on the other side, the Trump administration, they paint her as this like big liberal, you know, and when they're calling you a liberal and saying like, oh, this leftist, when they say it, it's really to demean someone and on their record for policies. But in fact, the people that are more liberal or real, you know, and are fine with that, they would argue very differently. If you go and talk to a lot of these organizations, like her stances on things, and that I just feel as if I'm really, really hope that after this we begin to hold those in power accountable, because the only way for anything to be shifted is for us to hold them accountable. If these people that we put in office, if they in fact do not represent the things that you believe in and are actually going to do the work to shift and restructure the systems, you have to vote them out. You have to. We can't continue to hide behind, oh, well, they have this much experience, and you can't.
But that's what young people have been wanting to do with the Democratic Party. But they've been chastised for it, because you have young Dem voters who are saying, these people are not left enough for me. We need to go in a new direction. And then you have folks in our generation and older than us saying, well, no, you're not going to get everything. That's a purity test. So which one is it? Do we want them to vote out people who aren't abiding by or espousing their views, or do we not want them to?
But that's part of it, though, right? That's what I'm talking about in terms of like bridging that conversation, that generational gap. That's now we need to model having those conversations with people outside of our own generation. We're having the conversation, but there's also all these people on Facebook going back and forth. They're having the conversations too. But I just think that it's now allowing older people, seasoned people, to be in those conversations, because I guess like a lot of, I say older seasoned, I'm just saying like.
That's how I put my finger up, because you said they're having the conversation on Facebook. Their thumbs are. I'm old school. Just pick up the phone and call me. I see all these memes talking about, if it can be handled in a text, don't call me. No, because I'm not 10. Just pick up the damn phone and dial my number. If the conversation could be done in 2 minutes, why am I gonna sit here texting you for 20 minutes? Like, that's dumb. Just call me.
The point I'm making,
because I'm an adult.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that those are the individuals on Facebook. I'm saying we wouldn't have all these focus groups and stuff. And right now we have plenty of time on our hands to get on these Zoom calls. Start having those conversations with people. Because I think what it's really going to take, the last point I'm going to make is what it's really going to take is for us to, the new administration that's going to come in, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm claiming it. The new administration, the Biden, Harris, when they come in, they really need, the one thing that they need to model is that they are willing, in fact, to have those conversations with these, what they consider like liberal organizations or people that are really pushing them to change the system. So if that means meeting with like Black Lives Matter groups, if that means that you're meeting with what's the moms group for against gun,
Moms Demand Action.
Yeah, Moms Demand, right? Moms Demand Action. If that means that you're now meeting with them, I won't, and not meeting with them just to get a picture saying that you are listening. I mean, like really meeting with them and inviting people that have been doing the work on the ground with them. That's what we need. Like, allow people that have been doing the work to have a seat at the table. Go ahead, Clark.
Keep going.
Yeah, but let's see some of the comments that we have here. Ooh, Grace said here, I wish we had a weekly presidential question time like in the UK. That, you know, again, more inclusivity in the political process in our government. That would also require us to have a government that was very transparent about things.
I guess I packed it up too tightly. I was going to put up my Moms Demand Action t-shirt.
Oh, man.
It's not in that drawer. So that's
sorry.
Not
and I'm like, I just knew the name and I really apologize for butchering that. I'm like, I know the organization.
No, they're great. I mean, Shannon Watts, I think it started pretty much after the Newtown massacre. And that's when I got involved early. And again, anyone that's been following the show for Now, this is our 12th week, 13th week, but 12th episode. And yeah, I mean, I've lost too many people to guns violence. Still a gun owner and supportive of gun rights, but also supportive of sensible gun regulations. And I love what Moms Demand does, because too many kids, too many people, period, not just kids, but too many people's lives are threatened. But I just think, as a teacher, I just think about guns in schools and like the lifelong trauma that can be inflicted if you have that type of experience. But we're about to go over, and I think you just told me we're at an hour. So quickly, I don't even know what I was going to say earlier.
I don't know.
You would let me go. That's okay. I think I put up Grace's comment. Oh, this is what I was gonna promo next week, essentially. So a week from today, everyone knows, is election day. Big day for the world, not just this country. I hope everyone has voted. And if you haven't voted yet, myself included, my ballot's done. I just got to drop it off. I thought Sean was going to call me out earlier. If you haven't voted, try to vote early, actually. But if you can't, and it's not an option for you, wake up early on November 3rd, because the lines are ridiculous. And we're not just talking about in red states, but this is blue states. It'll be over an hour long process. So make a plan. If you can't get it in early, make a plan to show up to your polling place early. If financially it's an option for you to call your supervisor and say and request to come in an hour late so that you can cast your ballot, do that. It's that important. And join us on the show. Shonda and I are going to present our election prediction maps. Anyone who, I wish I had mentioned this when Aarushi and Lauren May were on the call. So they were at the school when I, 4 years ago, made my prediction 2 months before the election. I predicted Trump, much to the chagrin of my colleagues who thought I was doing it for just clickbait. But for various reasons, I thought he was going to win. And so I'll make my prediction on air live next week. And I think we might do a little special a few days before Tuesday. It won't be a whole hour, it'll probably be about a 15-minute. But check in, join us throughout the night. We'll be live on IG a couple times. We'll be live on here on YouTube and Facebook, and we look forward to engaging more. And
everyone,
I feel like we have to thank Grace, because she has been.
Vote.
No, sorry. I just want to say I feel like we got to thank Grace and for her activity in the comment section, keeping us on our toes. Thank you again to Lauren May and Aarushi. I think future world changers, that generation is critical to the success and future of our country, and really like global leaders. And those two are some of the strongest that I've had the privilege of working with in and outside of the classroom. So if those are the types of leaders that we're producing, I'd say this country's in good shape. It's been another week of Truth Hour. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.